Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pushing Buttons podcast. Here on the Pushing Buttons podcast, we give each other nicknames or titles. I guess titles is probably the right thing. So my name is Marks, and I am a co-working streamer that plays Bloodborne instead of working. I mean, that's part of the work, though, right? Like, it depends on how you define work. And also, too, I would like to say that this is after my day job working hours. Very important distinction there.
True. No, but I mean, usually when people say co-working, they're like, oh, we're gonna work together. But like, I mean, I guess technically I work when you're streaming and playing Bloodborne, so it is a co-working stream, but like...
Okay. Hang on, can I explain this quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I decided to do on my stream is like, I've been making YouTube video guides for like doing like side quests and Bloodborne and stuff like that. And so working to film specific things in order to make this video requires a lot of grinding through Bloodborne and like beating bosses and stuff like that. So like it's like I'm working on the video, I'm just getting through Bloodborne as quickly as I can. So it's like it's work,
Yeah, sure, we can go with that. But anyways, My name is Anniepoo, and I'm too damn old for anime raves. And I don't think there needs to be any context. That is all the context. I'm too damn old for anime raves.
You know what's funny? So, okay.
You also went to an anime rave and you are too old?
No, but I went to like a concert a couple weeks ago, and it's like, I'm really big into like the punk rock scene, right? And so I was in the mosh pit, and like, I was just like going ham with my headbanging. I actually sprained my neck for 3 days after that concert. And so when you told me what happened...
Okay,
how your body hurt at the rave.
I didn't. Okay, so I went with some friends to an anime convention, and we went to the Flow concert. And Flow is the band, one of the two bands that was playing there. And then after the concert, we ran around a little more, and then we went back around to the area where the main stage was to get our bags, because you had to check in your bags before you went to the concert. But like at the main stage, I hear and I see a bunch of like just intense, the most intense music I had heard all day, and like a bunch of lasers and lights and like go-go dancers, and I'm like, what the hell is happening? I thought I was at an anime convention. And so we went in to check it out, and it was an anime rave that was happening, and we were like, oh, let's stay here and chill for a while. And I can't just like go to a concert and go to a random anime rave and just not like enjoy myself, right? So I hurt my neck.
Yep. Gabe recognized Gabe right now. Yep. But, okay, so anime raves aside, this is the Pushing Buttons podcast with Marks and Anniepoo, where we talk about just, slice of life esports stuff, what's going on, and different things that we just kind of want to chat about. So, big developments. I feel like I should, like, raise a siren or something like that, but that doesn't feel really appropriate to kick off the episode, nor do I really have a siren to do that. You were observing Gamechangers again.
I was observing Gamechangers again.
You were observing Gamechangers again.
I was observing Gamechangers again. My fourth VCT Gamechangers event for the main circuit. I've done plenty of Gamechangers Academy events when they were a whole thing in 2021 and 2022. But main circuit, like Gamechangers, this is my fourth time. And it was... actually, at the time of this recording, it's still going on. Open qualifiers finished, but we're still, we're about to start the main event. And I still have one more day of observing to go. And it's going to be cool and fun and cool, I guess.
Loki, I was kind of expecting you to say fun again, but okay, I guess we're only doing one fun here. Two cools, though. That's cool.
Yeah. Mostly two cools, one fun, because, like, I'm not as excited as I used to be about observing Gamechangers. About observing in general, I think, because it's felt more like work to me. I guess you could say I've peaked. No, I'm just kidding. I've more of, like, plateaued.
Plateaued. Good word.
Plateaued. To where...
Wait, do you say plateaued?
Yeah.
Isn't it plateaued?
I don't know. I don't care. I'm not going to argue with you about this.
Wait, no.
Say it however you want.
I'm in the wrong right now.
I don't care.
You plateaued?
Yeah. So I mean, like all of last year when I did my first Game Changers, and it was also the first Game Changers of the year, about the same time. I was super excited. I was pumped. I was like, oh my God, I've peaked. I didn't peak, but it was around that time. It was around that time that like I was climbing and climbing. I was getting more stuff. I was like getting new and exciting things every single time. And like every Game Changers last year, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm back for another Game Changers. Like somebody once called me once. I say once called me, but I really mean like 2 months ago. Said Anniepoo is a staple in the Game Changers community. And I was thinking, I'm not really sure about that, but I think after this Game Changers, I really felt, I felt like that was true. Like that person's perception of me was true. Like I do feel like I've done plenty of these events, to where I kind of feel like I've plateaued. I was climbing and climbing and climbing last year, doing Game Changers things, like growing with the community and like doing all these new things and working on marginalized gender events outside of Valorant as well. But now it feels like as a staple in the community or whatever you want to call it, I've done so many of these events. It's all starting to feel the same. And that doesn't make it less meaningful, I guess. It's not as, it's just as meaningful as it was when I started doing these events, but it feels more like work now that some of the, like, the glamour and the glitz, like I don't have the light in my eyes anymore. And it's just, it just feels like another day of work, which in some ways is sad because I don't have the light in my eyes anymore. It's not as shiny and exciting as it used to be. But also it means that I'm taking my job seriously. It means like I see myself as a professional that's going to work and I'm doing my best to showcase these teams as best as I possibly can.
Like, I feel that this is more of a reflection of just kind of like how crazy things can change for somebody. Just kind of like because if I may, when you first did the first Game Changers, that was like, you're getting into the observing world, you're trying to climb the ladder, you're trying to pursue these new challenges. But once you kind of hit a certain level, right, then suddenly those challenges are just become like the standard, right? And so also too, knowing how you operate, and I don't want to put words in your mouth and stuff like that, but you are someone who thrives off of being challenged for something new, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure I've said that before too. So.
Hey man, I'm not sure. I just want to make sure here.
Actually, no, I have said that before. I made a mistake when we talked about my boss, John, a couple weeks ago.
John Community Gaming.
John Community Gaming is now a character in Pushing Buttons.
The Lord
Anyways. John Community Gaming, when he became my boss, I told John Community Gaming that I set a New Year's resolution for myself.
Can we just call him John CG? I don't want to keep hearing John Community Gaming.
No, that's the fun of it.
That's the fiction? But, gotcha. Okay.
No, I told him, like, I want to do something this year. Like, I want every single week this year to do something that challenges me or makes me feel uncomfortable. And because I really like that feeling. And, it's not like I don't get that anymore. It's just I'm challenging myself in different ways. So whereas last year I was just challenging myself to do Game Changers or like be consistent in my work. Now I'm challenging myself to really get to know the teams and really get to know the players. So, and like VOD reviewing their past tournaments and like looking up what maps they usually perform on and like their agent compositions to try to like more accurately predict how they're going to play in a match versus another team. So I'm challenging myself in different ways, but it is definitely still feeling more like work than exciting. Woo, I get to do an event.
Yeah. I wonder almost like what is that turning point where, when you're working an event that it's like, ooh, this is work. And it is good though, because like you said earlier, you're approaching it as a professional. It's not like the vocabulary is escaping me right now, but it's not like, I'm being booked for this period of work and I'm taking it seriously in doing all my prep and stuff, right? Nice. That's usually the part where people expand upon that, but I guess I just summed it up so well that you're good to go, huh?
I thought you were summarizing what I was saying. I thought that was what was happening here. And so when you stopped talking, I was like, okay, yeah,
Okay, just to peel back the curtain. Just to peel back the curtain a little bit on the editing process of the Pushing Buttons podcast, this has happened multiple times every single time we record, where I will try to echo what you say, but then kind of pose a question back to you, and then you'll just be like, yeah, that was a good summary. And then I'm like, all right, well, moving on then.
I don't have anything else to say.
Oh, fair enough.
We need to like reverse the roles here.
What are you going to be? I mean, to be fair, I guess like with what you've been doing with work and stuff like that, you've been trying to be a little bit more on the good one, asking the questions and like got in the interviews, right?
It's not that I'm trying to. It's that I am doing it.
Okay.
I am being challenged.
Yes.
And it is a challenge.
Is it a challenge?
It's a challenge. I understand now.
You understand what I have to go through now?
I understand what you have to go through. I also okay, we didn't fully give context. So for my full-time job, I am doing some more community engagement events and inviting people that are a part of the community gaming world to talk about topics that they're passionate about or are experts about. And because that is my idea, I was challenged to host and moderate these panels and events and stuff. So now I understand a little better the struggles of being a caster, because I have to go back and listen to myself.
VOD reviewing.
I have to VOD review, yeah. VOD review, recording review, and it's not like I'm casting over live things that are happening, so it's not necessarily the same, but the principles of some of the things that I have to focus on are similar to what Marks has to go through all the time.
Yeah. I mean, even to like, what do you call it? So for my day job, I'm not sure if I talked about it on the podcast at all.
He's a bed.
I'm a what?
You're a bed.
Oh, I heard a bed, and I'm like, is this some new lingo that I'm just not aware of?
No.
Okay. I thought this was Riz Part 2. Like, I'm just so out of the loop these days. I'm a fucking boomer. But, okay, so basically what happened was because, like, my boss and stuff, like, know that I do, like, esports casting and all that type of stuff, she put my name forward to start moderating events that would happen in the government, right? Mm-hmm. And even though, through casting and stuff like that, I have a pretty good handle on talking with somebody, right? In a recording format, it is a different set of skills when you are moderating or you are doing like an interview and stuff like that, which, I don't want this to be all about me right now, but because I used to work at a radio station and we would interview like musical people all the time, like bands would come through and we would just like interview them on the air. Thankfully, I got a lot of practice on that. So it's a lot of like, can you stop? You're making me uncomfortable right now.
Okay, sorry.
But it's like you focus in on like what the other person is saying, and then you understand what they're... That one was okay. It was just whoa, no way, that's cool, no way. It was that was what was throwing me off. But like, you do have to like listen to what the person is saying, and then you have to almost like attach onto a single point and then ask them to expand upon it, or like try to get them to talk about something else, or know when, okay, we're done talking about something else. Something else I would like to ask you about is da 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 da. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of its own separate skill, even though you would think that they're very related to just being on an esports cast, where it's kind of different.
It is kind of different. Do you also do research before you do? I mean, I feel like you should be doing research before you're moderating these panels. But like for myself, like I had to moderate about a topic that I knew next to nothing about. And I, okay, maybe it's bad for me to admit this, but I'm going to do it anyways. I spent maybe 15 minutes before the actual like session researching this topic. And just pretended to know things about it, and it worked out. But like,
so that's really interesting, and quite frankly, I think it can work, because the whole point of you being a moderator or you interviewing somebody is to get information out of them, right? You are the stand-in for the audience. If we want to relate this back to esports, right? Like, the whole point on, when a color caster is like talking or an analyst is talking about stuff, and then you see like on the desk, someone will be like, oh, that's an interesting point, but what about this? Is they're the stand-in for the audience. So even though you might understand something or where the answer is going, you might ask something anyway. So then that way, like, everybody can hear that important part that is kind of being mentioned. So you not necessarily knowing what is going on, that kind of makes you the perfect stand-in for an audience. I wouldn't recommend it all the time, but it can work,
Yeah, it can. It can. It definitely can. But
yeah,
not when you're not when your audience is also experts on the topic. They'll know.
That does make it a little harder.
They'll know.
Yeah.
Do you think people know, like, when... I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Do you think people know when... for example, when you casted Fall Guys, do you think people knew that you didn't really know Fall Guys until that week?
Yes and no. So I think it is a little bit different in a cast versus if I was like interviewing an expert in Fall Guys for the Fall Guys community. I don't think I would have been able to fly in that space. But it's when you are kind of like when you're doing an esports cast, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know the game that well, you can get away with it to a certain point, but I think that is very much based around what the game is. If you do something very technical like Overwatch or Valorant, I would argue that you can't get away with it that much because, first of all, the communities care a lot about the game. Mm-hmm. And if you say something wrong, it is so obvious to the community, like, this is garbage. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Get him out of here. And I've seen actually a couple of people be kind of put on blast just because they were trying to do a game that was just to be frank, they were doing Valorant without ever having played Valorant or watching Valorant or anything.
Yeah, I've seen this happen before. Yeah. I've seen it happen a number of times. Thankfully not super frequently, but I have seen it happen multiple times, and it's really awkward. And I think seeing that happen, for me, I've seen it happen more at like the amateur beginner level where it's okay to make those kinds of mistakes. That's where you learn, really.
Yeah.
But when I see people swapping between games at like a higher level, I get a little worried that that's going to happen. Because it's so awkward. And I know for casters too, and for servers, really anybody who's working on like the broadcast side, it's fun to switch between games and expand your portfolio and such, right? You yourself you started in Overwatch and then you went to Valorant.
Yep.
And now you're back in Overwatch. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
You did an Overwatch cast recently.
I did. Are you trying to be an interviewer right now? Are you trying to flex those skills?
Yeah.
I did notice you were asking a lot of questions and I'm like, this is pretty good. Should I call it out? I'm going to call it out.
I don't think I did that on purpose.
Oh, really? See?
I did not do that on purpose.
Talented at it. Okay. Well, I am impressed.
Thank you. He never tells me that. You actually never...
Me?
No. I'm not trying to gaslight you. You actually rarely tell me you're impressed with me. You might say, like, good job.
Okay, you know what? I think it's because I use different. I think I use different phrasing. Yeah, like I'm just like, oh shit, that's really cool. Like, yo, that's sick. Like, you got something. That's amazing. Like that I knew that you were going for or whatever, right?
We're off topic. I asked you a question.
Okay, maybe when you're moderating a panel, don't bring them in like. Excuse me, famous person. We're off topic. Please stick to the question within the allotted time. Okay. Sorry, what was the question?
The question was, I don't remember the question anymore.
And you fail.
I was asking you about casting Overwatch.
Yes. Yeah, so this is, I mean, okay, a little bit of a story here, so strap in for a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Got your seatbelt on? Fantastic. That looked more like a when you're on like a fighter plane, but anyways.
Roller coaster.
Roller coaster ride. Yeah. Oh, I just had a flashback to when we talked about roller coasters for a really long time. I think it was on one of the earlier episodes of the podcast.
Roller coasters are so much fun.
Roller coasters are great. Anyways, we're getting off topic again. I'm bringing myself back in here. So this year, with just kind of like how things have worked out for me, it's not been too fruitful in me being able to find work in Valorant anymore. And there are a whole number of factors to the reason why that some of these things could be getting put into place. But I think that one of the biggest things was I needed like a little bit of a break. And I talked about this a lot in our podcast and just kind of like, you know, I need to figure out my time management a little bit better. And ironically, not being able to find as many like paid gigs or anything like that, it almost refreshed my like excitement for esports again. Whereas, you know, you're talking about getting back in and it's like, this is work. It still is work for me, but I'm coming back into things a little bit more where I'm like, you know what? This would be really cool if I did this. I don't have to keep like this is going to sound really bad. I don't have to set my standards so high with what I can kind of take if I am going to enjoy it, right? And so I'm trying to prioritize my enjoyment of spending my time doing these types of things more so. Do you just need a Cheeto? Okay. That was for the audio podcast listeners. You're welcome. Also the video podcast. I can feel them hit that back arrow so that it rewinds 5 seconds in time to watch you eat a Cheeto. But okay. It's kind of renewed my interest a little bit more in taking things that normally I would have said no to, but I want to do it because I think that it would be fun and exciting. And case in point, I got to get into an open division, which is like a tier 3 Overwatch tournament that feeds into the contender circuit. So like the winners of open division go into contenders. Well, and it was one of those things that like I'm not going to lie. When I found out that I got it, I was like, low-key, I'm pretty nervous because it's been a while since I've casted Overwatch. I've been so ingrained in like Valorant and stuff like that. And like I've spent so much time like, you know, watching team strategy, brushing up and like reviewing my VODs and all that in Valorant. And so I was like, all right, here we go. Let's see if we can still do it. Let's see if we still have it. Because Overwatch is a lot faster paced than Valorant in casting style specifically. And you know, we tripped, we fumbled, but then we got back up and kept on running until we got that touchdown. Sports ball. Yeah, it started out a little bit rough, but once I got back into the swing of things, like, it felt like seeing an old friend that I hadn't seen in a long time.
Oh my
and we
God,
still got along
nostalgic.
Just as well, you know?
God,
obviously,
so
I think
cute.
I was... What?
So cute. So great. Okay. You and your old friend.
Yep, me and my old friend Overwatch too.
Sorry. I'm being extremely distracting today for no good reason. Other than I feel especially chaotic.
This is great.
Because this is the outward presentation of the chaos inside of me. Marks knows that's only partially a joke.
You know what? It's all about how you funnel that energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so to finish up my story, it was nice getting back into it, and now I'm taking a look at brushing up my reel, and I want to try and be a little bit more active again with esports stuff. So I don't know. I'm feeling this wave of energy where maybe it's just a refreshness, and I'm hoping that this isn't one of those things where I'm like, I could do it. It's going to be great. And then the next thing you know, I'm exhausted again. So I'm trying to be very good about that. That is my only caveat.
Yeah. Felt so hard.
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged, and also just understood in a bad way, because I'm guilty of that. I think we've covered that multiple times, like maybe every other episode. I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Do I want to do this anymore? I'm kind of burnt out.
You should see our brain dump channel for this podcast. It's like one thing, then another thing, then another thing, and then it's like, I think I'm done. I'm back into it. I'm so excited for this. I'm done.
It's a roller coaster. I do love my roller coasters. No, but like, yeah, we have a production Discord.
I've literally stopped reading the Discord because it would stress me out from coming into a recording, because I'm like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. We could do this. We could do that. We could do this. This could go anywhere.
We just have a lot of different things that we can cover here, right? I mean, even in times where it's fairly slow for us, you were talking about how it's been slow for you recently, and you've been investing a lot of time in Valorant, yet not getting a lot of Valorant gigs. I mean, for myself, I also had a pretty slow period of time, but when we come in to record our podcast every other week, there's always something new to talk about, or something old to talk about. And in our Discord, our Discord server, that's the two of us for this podcast, we have a brain dump channel. It was created by me, for me, to literally just dump my brain in there. And sometimes I dump too much of my brain in there. And then Mark's is trying to understand, and he gets confused, and then he asks a clarifying question, and then I answer it, and then I get confused too, because I'm like, wait, does that match the question? Anyways, so it's a mess. I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. That's fine. But this is, once again, why communication is extremely important in the workplace and understanding your coworkers' communication styles. That is very helpful. I mean, even we're talking about the podcast. Pardon?
Did we talk about that previously? You said once again, and I'm like, I don't remember talking about that ever.
Have we not talked about that?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe that's something that we should talk about in a future episode.
Let me go listen to all 16 past episodes and see.
Are you confident about your answer?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I feel like we could have talked about communication. I'm not sure that we've talked about communication here. Let me amend my answer. We've talked about communication, but not between coworkers, between contractor and hiring manager.
Yeah, that's true. We do talk about that a lot, but I don't know. I mean, you love startup culture. We've talked about this before. I'm very confident about that one. You're just like, you are in startup culture, but
I'm a dirty tech bro. Okay, wait, hold on.
The confidence that you said that with, and you looked the camera directly on and just said it. Like, I was just not expecting that at all. You're really swinging from left field today.
I also just realized, I'm sorry, I'm coming out of work, and so I mean, community. I live in Seattle, and I work for a startup that technically kind of operates like a tech startup, and so you guys are getting a glimpse into non-esports Annie, basically. When I say I'm a dirty tech bro, sturdy. Okay.
Okay. All right, let's pull it back in. Let's pull it back in.
Okay, anyway.
Okay. All right. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Are you crying?
No, I'm not. No, I really love startup culture. I'm not a tech bro. I don't know how to code. But I relate to it. I'm in tech bro TikTok for some reason.
How'd you get in the tech bro TikTok?
I don't know, but I get a bunch of TikToks that are around tech bro and startup culture, and it's about how the product team interacts with the dev team and interacts with design, and I'm I understand all of this and it's funny, but why am I in this? I work in marketing.
Well, okay, so how I was actually going to bring this back around is I do feel especially too, once you we've talked a lot about how, hey, you're looking to get hired as an observer, as a caster, those specific areas. But I do think that there is a discussion to be had that when you want to actually turn esports into a day job type of thing, instead of just freelancing and working gigs and stuff like that, I mean, for lack of better terms, tech bro culture is kind of what some esports orgs are operated right? More startup-y, I would guess. I feel tech bro is implying a lot of coding and that type of stuff.
It does imply a lot of coding, but it also implies certain workflows that I don't see in esports orgs. Okay. And I'm not, I don't know how to explain this without just showing you tech bro TikTok.
I was about to say, we could just pull up the tech bro TikToks and you'd be able to figure it out.
No, but there's, and that's partially because, the product or the service that you're trying to sell in a tech startup is going to be different than in a startup esports org, right? One is entertainment. The other one is usually products and services to do something for you, to make your life easier in some way, however they want to sell it. But you do need to enjoy startup culture to a certain extent in order to thrive in esports, I think. And that comes with having to innovate a lot. Esports is the fastest growing industry. Okay.
I am so bad that I started that and now you are owning it.
But esports,
oh man, that was my thing, and now it's yours.
Yeah, now it's my thing. Sorry, I stole it. But esports esports. I don't know if it's the fastest growing industry, but it is an industry that is not well established amongst many others quite yet. And so, things that you might see in, I guess, I don't want to call it corporate esports, but I guess office job esports is, it's very important to take knowledge and take skills from other industries and bring them to esports. You can take sports management, for example, referees, people who have worked in competitive operations in sports can bring their skills into esports and really develop professional, streamlined workflows for leagues, for tournaments and such. Player managers take a lot from their equivalents. Player managers and esports take a lot from their equivalents in the sports and entertainment industries. I mean, you don't have player managers in the entertainment industry, but you might have a talent handler who is shuffling people from place to place. For example, at the Oscars, every actress or actor probably has a handler with them or an assistant of sorts that is helping them get from press conference to media photos and such, and tell them, okay, it's time to go, let's wrap it up, blah, blah, blah. You take from other industries, but there are going to be some things that you cannot take from other industries, things that are very unique and specific to esports that is going to challenge you to innovate. And that's where that kind of startup culture comes from. Trying to think of an example, but I can't. They're not here in my brain. It's empty.
Wow, that's almost like your thing on the show, huh?
You were supposed to finish it. I was setting you up.
What, head empty? LFT?
No,
That's at the end. What are you doing?
Well, why can't we say it now? Why can't we say it now?
Because then it loses its magic. Much like you doing a bunch of observing gigs, it gets, if you normalize it too much, then it's not as great on the end.
It's still great. It's just work.
It's different. What I'm trying to explain here is, what do you call it? More on the creating a joke for a comedy type of style of things, where you can't normalize something too much, because if you do that, that becomes a standard, and then the joke's not going to be as funny. And that's why when you see on a lot of sitcoms and stuff like that, the one character who always has the same joke, after a certain point, it feels like that joke isn't said as often because they've kind of beat it into the ground by accident. I am avoiding that with you saying looking for thought.
See, this is a prime example of things you take from other industries and bring into esports.
Are you telling me I'm an innovator?
No, I'm telling you that you're well versed in other industries and you're bringing that knowledge to esports.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, you can be an innovator too. I mean, are you going to innovate something in your next reel? Like, show me something cool. Make it, like, pop out.
You know what would be really funny in a reel? And now we're really off topic here. That's totally fine. Those, like, there was, like, a string of, like, TikTok Valorant montages where, like, it would, like, freeze on the agent, and then, like, the map would fly in on the left side, and then a shot would go off, and then the things, like, go on in the music. If there was a way to turn that into, like, a casting reel, that shit would pop.
Okay, well then do that.
I don't know how to do that. I'm not that good of a video editor.
Okay, well then learn. I don't know. Isn't that what you do? That's how you got through school, isn't it? I don't know how to do this. I'll just learn how to do this.
I mean, you're not totally wrong. But also, too, that was a formal education that I paid lots of money and had to attend many hours of class to learn.
Okay, so, like, your casting career is on the line here. Equal importance.
I feel like you've just made things a lot more dramatic than they needed to be.
No, I really did. Okay. Maybe.
No, go on.
No, sorry. I'm just, if I do, it's not going to be a valid argument. It's just me arguing for the sake of arguing. So I'm going to be extremely self-aware and not continue that.
Okay, fair enough. I have to say, this has been the most free-form episode I think we've ever recorded in the history of the Pushing Buttons podcast.
Yeah, but you had fun, didn't you?
I did have fun. Did you have fun?
I had fun. I think it felt more free-form to you because I actually transitioned for you at some points. And normally, I let you transition everything.
That is true, but also, too, I think that we came into this not necessarily having, like, a guideline, and so it was kind of like, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. Just
to, I mean, I don't think this is really breaking the fourth wall, but another backstage peek. Prior to hitting record, we talked about what to talk about. That's a funny phrase.
That's like thinking about something.
Yeah. We discussed today's topics for maybe like 5 minutes. I don't know. I had written a lot of text in the brain dump channel that I thought we could use. And we kind of did use, but not really. It just, yeah, we had no clue what we were going to talk about today. But I feel like we haven't had a clue of what we were going to talk about for maybe 3 months.
I wouldn't say that. You weren't even here for one of the months.
Okay, well, 2 months.
Okay, fair enough. No, I feel like, you know what this episode is turning into? What? I mean, it kind of already has turned into it, but it's like when you do an episode about your own show. Because we spend a lot of time talking about our experiences behind the scenes of esports tournaments, working in freelance and stuff like that. But I don't think that we've really talked about how we go about putting this podcast together and like organizing things before we record and all that type of stuff. Not even like the lore, just like the behind the scenes look at how we
You guys want
do the
to
podcast.
talk about the lore? I'll talk to you guys about the lore. So, like, in January of 2022, Marks became my friend because he sent me a photo of him in a dentist chair. And then the
We've
next
covered that.
month, he was like, yo, we should record a podcast. And then I said, I'm a little busy right now. Let me think about that. And I legitimately meant, I'm a little busy right now. Let me think about that. But to Marks, apparently that meant no.
That's the nice way of saying no to somebody. Like, I'm sorry, I'm really busy right now. I would love to do that, but I am so busy. And so I was like, okay, point taken. That's cool. You're a busy person. That's fine.
And then I came to him like a month later and I was like, hey, do you want to start working on that podcast now? And then we started working on that podcast for 6 months before we actually released an episode.
We had I think originally the plan was to only do 8 episodes, and we were going to focus on a very specific topic every single episode, right?
Yeah, that would not have lasted.
No, not at all. And it was one of those things I remember where we wrote in, after the 8 episodes, we will see if we want to continue this. But it got to a point where we kept on pushing it back and delaying it and just being is this really what we want to talk about? This doesn't make any sense. And so ironically, we went from a very structured breakdown of how we were going to dissect every single episode. It almost felt like mini documentary series, just explaining all of the things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It just got to a point where or we could just do it. And here we are.
Just doing it. And it's also gotten progressively worse as we've gone on too. The first 5 episodes, I had outlines for us.
Yeah, you did.
We wrote in maybe 2 days before recording what we were going to talk about and would decide by the morning we were recording, which the order of topics we would do things in, and then over time it became I'll fill it out the day of. I'll fill it out 30 minutes before we start recording. And then eventually let's just not do that anymore.
I remember, I think it was as soon as you stopped doing it, I'm where's the outline? I was gonna I wanted to see what you wanted to talk about so I could do a better job of asking you about it. And then you were oh yeah, I just didn't do that. Oh. Okay, sounds good. But no, I mean, I there are some strengths and weaknesses about the way that we've kind of done things, but we have to, much like you reviewing your old tapes on you moderating and stuff like that. I think it is an important thing to kind of take a look and see what's working with the podcast, because I do think that quite a few new people are also starting to tune in too, and so. Honestly, you talked about the fact how we've talked about all sorts of different topics in the past, but at the same time, maybe we refresh some of those types of things and touch on some more things.
Yeah, okay. So anyways, so let's go back to a topic we've covered before. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm having an existential crisis every single second of the day. I'm in my 20s. I don't know what I'm doing. God help me. What do I want to do? How long can I be an observer for?
Please take a breath. I mean, we cover existential crises plural, because I feel that is the state of being. But you just kind of have to, at least my mentality, I think when it comes to this whole industry is just kind of, you have to take it almost one day at a time, because if you want to just take over the world and you want to
you sound like John Community Game. Oh, sorry.
I don't even know who John Community Game is. It's very hard for me to agree or disagree with that statement.
It's because last week in our one-on-one, he told me, I can hear in your voice that you're stressed out and you need to calm down. He didn't say you need to calm down. That was not, that was my interpretation. That's what I would have said to myself, is you need to calm down. What he said was, it's not going it's not going to change overnight, and no one's expecting you to change things overnight. There are just some things that are going to take a while. It's a process, and that's okay.
Yeah. And especially too on like esports. Like,
Building
boy
your
howdy,
career.
there are a lot of factors that can kind of play into that, and I think that luck is always one of those factors too, that like, you know, sometimes it just ain't the time for certain things to fall into place, and that's just kind of how it goes. That's also just a good life lesson sometimes too. So it is okay that things don't always just like, oh boy, it's all falling apart.
Well, I'm sure that was reassuring to some people.
Okay. We can talk off the air afterwards, but I think actually this is a pretty good place to end the podcast right now. But unless you have something else you would like to talk about before we kind of wrap things up.
No.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, this was an interesting episode of the Pushing Buttons podcast.
It was
Hopefully
the
at
best
home.
episode of the Pushing Buttons podcast.
We can't say that, it's not out yet, so we don't know that for a fact, you know?
When it comes out, it's going to be the best episode of Pushing Buttons podcast.
Okay. All right. Cool. But hopefully you enjoyed this and got a bit of a better idea on some of the things there. Because I also think too, you know, how a lot of content gets presented is very filtered. You know, you got to be super up and happy about everything that you're talking about all the time. But I feel like this is a much more real conversation between me and Annie that would usually happen when we're not recording. So it's a bit of a different experience. But, you know, hey, now you get to know a little bit more about us and I guess how our friendship kind of works. But yeah, I think that's about... Why are you laughing? Is that not true?
How it works or how it works. A long time ago,
so
I don't know why I did this, but I called Marks Warks, and it stuck around, and other people started calling him Warks.
My roommate
to the
started
point
calling me
where he had to tell me, you need to stop calling me Warks because I'm going into broadcasts that you're not even a part of, and people will call me Warks.
Yep. That was a little bit of, oh, we're not that close. I would prefer if you didn't call me that. And they were like, hey, Works, no, Works, no, Works. And I'm like, this is the first time I've met you, man. Can you please use my actual name? Like, there's a certain level, you know, familiarity. You gotta, you know. But anyways, okay. So that wraps up the Pushing Buttons podcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, then please leave a comment, like, review, all that stuff. Follow the podcast as well. We do episodes bi-weekly. On top of that, too, follow us on Twitter at PushButtonsPod. I know I said I was going to be better at posting clips, but I forgot to do that. I'm only posting once a week, but I'll try and once every other week. I'll try to post a little bit more on that front as well. At least get those clips edited together. I did do a better job with that. It's all falling apart. No, I kid. Okay, but with that, Annie, do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
No.
Are you going to say the line? This is like, you know that Simpsons meme where they're like, say the line.
No, I've actually never seen The Simpsons.
It's a meme. It's not, you don't have to watch The Simpsons to know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what meme you're talking about.
You are killing me. How do you not know? Okay, I'll send it to you afterwards.
I'm sorry. My name is Annie, and it was great seeing you guys. I didn't see you guys, actually. You might have seen me. I didn't see you, and you also just... Anyways, I have chosen to be extremely difficult today, and I apologize that you had to be a witness to that.
And we will catch you in 2 weeks for another edition of the Pushing Buttons podcast. We will see you then. Okay, bye everyone.